Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Muslimconvert podcast, and this is about modesty. What if I told you if struggling as a convert or revert, and dressing modestly is something that takes more than just changing clothes. I think a lot of the things that comes with transitioning into a modest, wear wardrobe, I would say it really does make a difference around those who are closest to you. And I say that because I think people will start looking at you slightly different and start thinking that you are, being maybe manipulated, or that you're doing things for the wrong reasons, or that you feel like oppressed or forced. I mean, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter how, people see you or what people think of you, especially those close to you. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot more to it when you're doing it as a Muslim convert and revert, because we know that, for ourselves deep in our hearts, that the things that we decide to do are truly for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and, so we can be the best Muslims that we can be. And so when I always think about modesty, I think about how, fashion in general has such a big statement these days. And I think about drastic changes. And I say that because it can feel like a drastic change. I think a lot of the times it really just depends on who you are and what your personality is. Some people take a lot of comfort in just doing things slowly, especially if something feels big. And an example of that would be the hijab. Like, putting on the hijab feels like a drastic change, and a very significant change. And I say that because I've heard many women just talk about how they feel like if they, put on the hijab and they're not fully maybe there yet with their wardrobe, they're going to be looked at in the wrong way. They're going to be perceived in a way that is different from other Muslim women, lots of judgment. And it is quite sad, but I also can see how that can be a fear and a factor to, making that change fairly quickly. So having a pause and a hold and finding comfort in the choices that you make, I think will make the process so much easier. I also find that being hesitant is totally normal. I feel like that's something that, should be recognized, that there's a lot of uncertainty and hesitancy when it comes to making a change, especially when we're talking about modesty and Islam together. I also find that, there's other people who also love going all in, like head first, jumping in. And I think that's also a beautiful thing. And I really don't think that has anything to do with, them wanting to, just convert and revert and then, make a statement. I think it's just, again, it depends on the personality of who you are and what you like, what you're like, and also the factors that may play a role in your decision making. I think there's so much that comes with being a Muslim convert and revert, and in my experience, I know that my mom was a factor. I think just where I was at with hanging with friends was also another factor. I believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just doesn't make things easy. I think you find Islam and it's so beautiful, and there's so much connection that you feel, but it doesn't mean that it won't come with challenges. And it's a thing, facing trials and tribulations and the choices that you make, and it's forever ongoing. But I believe dressing modestly can be a journey, a long journey, if that's what it takes to get to where you want to be. So my thing with that would also be to focus on basics. I think about how much I changed my clothes, and realistically, I would say more so now, I've changed my clothes, my bottoms, I would say, like my bottoms, because I, did have a lot of crew t-shirts, very little v-necks, long sleeves. I've always worn baggy sweatpants from time to time. There's always these modest pieces that I had in my wardrobe. And so at some points it made it easier to layer And at other points it was a little bit harder to layer because either my t-shirts weren't too long, or they just, were a little bit too short or too tight for what I wanted. So I think just really focusing on the basics really helped me. And that's also something that I think about when I think about modesty, especially when I think about prayer. I remember when I first started, I was like, okay, well, I need to have baggy clothes, because at the time I didn't have like a prayer, I guess like a prayer dress is what I would call it, a prayer garment. And so I would just wear like, I think it was like a sleeping robe, and I would also wear just super baggy long sleeves. I think I would dig something up for my dad's wardrobe, and just, wear my baggy sweatpants and, cover up my head and then start prayer. But, I think just being able to do something as small as that really makes a difference. And it really increases like your way of thinking. I think it really motivates you and can push you in the right direction. And I find it not so overwhelming when I focused only on the basics. I found it to be super helpful. I really honestly, again, started with like long sleeves, crew necks, like t-shirts. I wasn't a hijabi right away. That was my choice. That was my decision. I did wear some maxi skirts, like longer ones. And then, slowly I started just updating everything in the best way that I could. I also find that it really allowed me to not think too much about having to spend a lot of money. I mean, we all know spending money on clothes and doing a whole update can be, just, for me, it was like, can be kind of annoying, because you just have to go shopping and just kind of go through that whole process, feeling like yourself as well. Throughout the time that you're like shopping, it takes up a lot of time. So it's just really like costly in that way. Like it just takes up a lot of your time. And it can, I guess put a dent in your account if that's something that you're worried about. So all these things too are totally fair. So focusing on the basics is something that really made a difference, especially as a new convert. And I'm super thankful, and alhamdulillah, like I've come a long way. And like that was with me taking it pretty slow at a pace that I thought was, extremely, it allowed me, I took it at a pace that was fairly like slow, but also had allowed me to like ground myself more, to become the woman that I wanted to be, not just the Muslim woman, but like the woman that I wanted to be, and how I wanted to represent myself. So there's definitely like, I think a level of modesty that you can find comfort in, and that you want to be, and then you can slowly start incorporating and building off of that. So that's just how I was, and that's why, again, I always say I focus on the basics, and that's something that really allowed me to really build a foundation and see myself, future forward, and how it is I can add things on, and what color schemes I currently have. And I just know that if I had jumped all in, it wouldn't have worked for me. I would have probably felt like I've lost myself, and that was the thing that I really didn't want to happen. So yeah, that's something that I would advise if you are looking into changing, or wanting to think about just modest clothing and just the way you dress. I also think the other thing that really comes up for me when I think about modesty is that really choosing to be modest is tough. I think just recognizing that and bringing awareness to that, again, what other people wear really doesn't matter, because their choices are their choices. And I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the power and granted us the knowledge to make the decisions that we need to make for ourselves, for our own body, and for who we are as individuals. And I think we're very unique in a lot of ways, and our situations are very unique. So just, it can be a hard decision. And again, and just being able to have time for yourself so you can discover and explore, what it is that you're going through during the time that you're choosing to be modest or dress more modestly. And I think, again, that choice in itself, it really does lead to, or can lead to, an ultimate test. But that's like everything I always think about. Like, it's like everything we do can lead towards something. And I feel that for someone like myself who's had the best intentions, especially when I made the choice to gradually add more modest pieces to my wardrobe, I felt really great. I was super honest, and I felt like my decisions and the way I approached others and myself was with a lot of kindness and gratitude. So it made me feel like I was moving in the right direction. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people need to think about sometimes when it comes to making that choice, is that you know that your intentions, you know where your heart lies, and you should give yourself a lot of credit for that, because you know you are heading in the right direction. And that's really what's all that matters. And that's modesty, you know, choosing to move in a place where you know you want to be and you want to be better. And it's hard for Muslim converts, but it's totally and definitely worth it, in my opinion. I think another noise that can come into, you know, making this choice is the comparison between men and women and what modesty looks like. And I always say, you know, do your homework, see if you can, you know, read something online. I will link a website. It's from alislam.org once again, and it talks about just wearing, you know, modest clothes, the hijab, the different types of coverings for Muslim women. And I think there's a lot of beautiful things that you can learn from that site. I also find that there's a conversation, again, from like Sayyid Ahmad, that speaks about modesty and women, and especially just also like Muslim converts. And I find that super helpful and motivating as well. So I think just having the knowledge, doing your homework, so that way you can ignore any of the noises that come with it, because you've already made a hard choice. Choosing to be modest doesn't come always easy, especially and unfortunately when it comes to the Muslim community, it can be a little harsh and judgmental. And I think sometimes it's unintentional. I think a lot of times it's just very subconscious for others. And I think these like high standards can have someone move away from wanting to make the decision. So if, as a Muslim and as a, you know, convert, I think just being able to do your homework really supports and can support you, and it's very motivating in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'm super grateful, alhamdulillah, the way it started, again, with the basics, moving all the way through with a little bit more looser clothes. And then, alhamdulillah, I think within about 1 year of converting, I decided one day to just wear the hijab. It was a beautiful choice. I was super nervous. I went through all like that whole mindset of, am I good enough? And do I have the right clothes? And my gosh, I still like wear jeans. And I just went through this overthinking, overwhelming, you know, feeling and phase. And I think what helped me the most was that, again, reminding myself my intention and the choice that I made. And also, not gonna lie, being able to find a website, a Muslim Canadian brand, Voila Chic, where they make instant hijabs. I find that things like that also really help you and uplift you and make you feel really good. And I know that's not the whole point of it, but it really does help. So shout out to Voila Chic. I will also link them to the bio and the description for this podcast episode. Anyways, inshallah, your journey is going well, and inshallah, like this podcast, hearing me talk a little bit about modesty and what I think about my thoughts and how it kind of went for me a little bit can support you, and inshallah, I'll catch you in the next episode.